Hi, it's me, Kay Cook, and welcome again to another super conversation, a live Thrive chat where we're focusing on inspiring resilience through conversations with very interesting people. And today we have not only an extremely interesting person, but somebody who I would regard as a great teacher of mine, coach, mentor, all sorts of other wonderful titles, the president of our Society of NLP, which is John Valle. Welcome, John.
Hi, Kay. Hey, thanks so much for having me. You said so many nice things about me. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure we could go on. It's really great to have you here, and thank you for taking the time across the pond. So we're in afternoon, and you're just waking up over there, but you're still in lockdown. Everybody's in lockdown.
Yep. Yeah, we're quarantined. So.
I just wondered about that whole word lockdown. It's a crazy word, knowing what we know about the impact of language.
Well, over here, it has, there are a lot of different things right now with this. First of all, there's no law here telling people that they must stay home. Okay. Whereas these are really highly important suggestions and recommendations. We really cannot be forced not to stay home and not go out. And that's most of it because of our Constitution. Now they'll use certain words, and you and I both know a lot about words, things, and the impact of the words. So they wouldn't say lockdown here, but they would say, like, for example, they'll say, we want you to shelter in place. Now, now just those words alone, by the way, have a pretty serious connotation to them, but it's not legal for us. Fortunately, most people understand what that means, and they also understand it means it's for their safety. So they should stay home unless they really have to go out. I'm in New Jersey, and I got to tell you, most people here are really compliant. You'll get the one or two people here and there, but most people here, they got their face masks on. A lot of them wear their gloves. Unless they're not with anyone, they're walking. I got neighbors who walk in the street to exercise. They don't have a mask on because they're not really with anyone. But otherwise, where they're supposed to have them. But the other difference here is, and that's they can't do that because of our Constitution, quite frankly, which I cherish every word of that thing myself. So they're very compliant here. I have to say that. But the other part of it here is that the stores can make things mandatory, or you don't come into the store. And that's very different. Because a store, if you don't have a mask, and they have signs on the door, required. Don't come in if you don't have one. And if you go in without one, they're going to tell you to get out. If you don't get out, they're going to call the police. That's very different because that's going into the business where they have the right to tell you what to do and not to do on their premises. So I understand they use the word lockdown over there. I mean, that whole word.
It's so true. It's become, I think, just one of those words that slipped into our common parlance. We just use it without even thinking now. But I guess sometimes, again, knowing what we know about the impact of language on our words and pictures, if I slow it down and think about lockdown, it's quite a gruesome, aggressive sort of, you could, I don't know, it does all sorts of strange things, and yet somehow we've slipped it in as being a normal word. It's weird, isn't it?
I don't like the word because of the impact I feel about it, the pictures I make about it. But I got to tell you, this is really not. I don't know if that's strange. When I first heard lockdown, first thing I thought was that's what they say in prisons. If there's a riot, they go, we're on lockdown. Everybody get in your cells. We're on lockdown. Yeah. And I'm thinking, wow. If someone said we're on lockdown here, I would think I'm in prison. I mean, I don't like the word itself. But like you said, I mean, all the governments are slipping different words in and hoping they have different meanings and stuff like this, to the people. But this is what we do, This is what humans do, or governments do, I should say. I don't know that they're all human myself. But. You know me. You know me.
Let's not go there.
No. I know, and it just makes sense to you know, stay away from the public, stay out of the public unless you absolutely must go out.
Yeah.
You know, this is not anything new. You know, Kathleen and I, you know, we've stayed away from people out in the public most of the time anyway. So, yeah. For the same reasons.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Because actually, it's giving us a chance to consider what we want to do and what we don't want to do. And actually, I really like this generalized ability to stay in one place, stay focused on one or two things of my choosing. Gives you a different level of perceived control.
Yeah, people have been asking us what's different for us during this time, and I'm saying, really, not much, except that we're not traveling.
Yeah.
You know, because her and I are always always at home. We do office stuff, from here, unless we're out traveling, doing seminars and things. I mean, this is what we do. We're together all the time, and we're online now more. That's about it.
Yeah.
Doing these kind of things. So there's not much more that's different, at least at this time for us anyway, except we're not traveling anywhere. We're not doing seminars like we'd like to do.
Yeah, and that's kind of, it's interesting you raise that, because that's actually kind of where I was hoping that we might be able to go with the discussion. So John, your well, I was going to say your expertise is, but that would be a huge disservice to you, because your expertise is enormous. But one of the things that you really like to major on is the precision of language, and particularly language in business. And the current business model has had to shift exponentially into these new modalities of interacting with our customers. And for me, I also work largely from home, unless I'm in a training room or a workshop or in a business or something. But my go-to is being at home, no makeup, sort of scruffies, because it really doesn't matter. And then I present myself to the outside world when I go out. But suddenly, every day, I'm interacting with the world in a new way. And not only is the visual really important, but also I'm super conscious of having to clean up my language or be more precise with my language in a different way than I would otherwise have done. Does that make sense to you, that we're going through?
Yeah, a lot, actually, a lot. Well, I've always liked the language, and I think when I was younger, I had and they probably were, intuitive senses about what was going on when someone would speak, until I really learned that I could learn about that. Otherwise, to me, it was like, well, I know what they mean, and this isn't going to go right, or it's going to go really well. But to me, it was always an intuitive thing, and I didn't know how to express that either. So in other words, I didn't know how to communicate myself in a way that was, let's say, more precise, so that the other person would understand at least what I was wanting to say. Language is very imprecise, by the way. I mean, it's so imprecise because, that you've heard the term, picture's worth 1,000 words. I've been saying for years, a word is worth 1,000 pictures. You just don't know which ones the person has.
Yes.
So you really, we really take our best shot at it. But I also find that in a lot of cases, especially in business things, that people are way too ambiguous about things when they expect in their mind something that's actually more specific. Then things don't go right. And this is not just in business, of course, but that's my favorite place to play.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
I'm guessing that the opportunities that are presenting themselves for presenting our businesses in a different way, for example, through Zoominars and webinars, and is going to require a little upgrade in our skill set, even though those of us who are experienced in using NLP and delivering using NLP, we still could just augment a little bit so that we could be even more precise. And something that's been going through my mind is, can we have a masterclass, please? Tell us, because each and every word that's landing on an unknown quantity, because in the classroom we can see the responses from people, but behind the screens we don't. Do you think that even the world of NLP is going to just kind of unfold into a new modality?
Well, I certainly hope so. I agree with you on all of the things you just said. The thing different when you're online like this, when we're doing these Zoom things or whatever the modality is that there's a lot of information even missing visually that helps us to understand what might be in between the lines verbally. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Also, you see these Zoom things, I don't think people, if I were in a meeting with a group of people, a business meeting, let's say, and I could watch around the room and I could see how different people respond to what the speaker is saying. That's not always possible on a call like this. So if I had a checkerboard in front of me, if you and I had 10 people on this call, I'd have to be watching 10 different screens, plus there's a lag in the transmission of the visuals and all this stuff. So that's just another challenge doing this. So upgrading of skills, I don't know, it's going to be difficult to do anything about the internet, the lag or the time it takes to respond. Let me tell you how critical, well, you already know this. I'm going to say this for the sake of who's ever going to watch this thing. There have been cases, and I'm going to talk about policemen for a moment, who have been in, about how the brain works and how fast or how slow we actually process visual information even, okay? So I have a friend of mine, and what he does, he's an expert witness, mostly for police officers. In a situation where the police officer is accused, chasing the bad guy, whatever, and he sees the bad guy draw the gun, he's going to shoot the police officer, and the police officer takes the shot and ends up shooting the guy in the back. Now that's a no-no, because if he's running away, okay. But it takes a nanosecond, or I don't even know what the real terminology is, but it's enough of a time lag. We're talking face-to-face. We're not even talking online, doing these Zoom calls. There's a certain delay in the processing of the data, because our eyes don't see, this, our eyes don't see, our brain is what actually processes the images. There's such a lag between sees, which is the guy is going to shoot him, right? And so the cop is going to shoot back. But in that very short space of time, the guy turns to run away. But by the time it registers in the officer's mind, okay, he's already taken his shot at the guy and he shoots him in the back. Now, that's probably a very, I'm sure it happens in sports. Somebody's going to take a basketball shot or whatever and ends up, getting an elbow because he didn't see the elbow coming fast enough, things like this. But that's just a comment on how much time it takes for us to register even the visuals. I don't even know about the auditories, because this guy does the visual thing in order to defend police officers. So we are in the Zoom call, and if we're going to have a business meeting and I want to watch a group of people's responses, I've got to seriously upgrade my visual skills, my calibration skills, and the whole thing. Because, if I'm going to be in a meeting with people, it's very simple what I do. I don't watch the person. I don't look at the people. I don't watch the speaker. I watch the people who are responding to the speaker. Okay, most people are watching the speaker, not me. I'm looking around the table. But I want to watch the other people's responses to what the person speaking is saying. Because that's really where the action is. If I was going to do consulting to a company. So and that's just the visual aspect. Okay. Now, the precision of the language certainly does help. Now, in a situation like this is crazy because this is great. If I was on a Zoom meeting, and I've been on a few already, you know, kind of things. I'm getting used to it, believe it or not. It's I enjoy the convenience of it. There are a lot of challenges to it, you know, and that I think people take for granted. So you and I are having a discussion, and if we had a group of other people, I've noticed other people, because I've seen the checkerboard thing where you got the, you know, the 10 by 3, 30 people things. And I see some people, you know, doing this, looking at their phone. They don't know I can see them looking at their phone. I don't know why not. They don't know this, which is okay with me. I don't care what they're doing, but it means they're not paying attention to what's going on in the meeting. So it's more readily available with a live meeting. Of course, you can just look around and see who's not doing, you know, who's doing what, who's not paying attention or whatever. But it's much more challenging. So we got to upgrade our skills. Exactly that. A lot of people record the Zoom calls, which is okay. And so we better be more precise with our language. And it's still going to be misunderstood by, I'm going to take a guess, half the people, you know, on all the research I've never really done based on that, you know, even though it's been recorded, you know. We had a long time ago, Kathleen and I were doing this seminar in Jersey. And there was a woman in the program, great lady, by the way. She's been through a bunch of programs. And I still don't know what she heard me say. Well, except she tried to tell me what it was, but she changed her mind 3 times. And in the middle of me explaining something to the class, she said, John, she goes, I'm really surprised at you. And I said, what? Why? She goes, I take offense to what you just said. And I said, what did I just, and I'm recording, by the way. And I said, what did I just say? And she said, I'll make this up. She said, well, you said ABC. I said, absolutely not. First of all, that's not even in my repertoire. That's not even, I couldn't even support saying that. She goes, well, that's what you said. I said, no, actually, that's what you heard. And I said, okay, class, how many of you heard me say what she said I said? And half the class or more raised their hand. And I was shocked. I was really shocked. And I said, well, here's what I actually said. First I said, okay, now we know what she said. I said, now here's what I said. We're going to play the recording back. And I said, so how many of you heard me say what she said, what she heard me say anyway? And good, more than half the class raised their hand. I went, oh boy, oh man. I hope when I play the recording back, I actually said what I thought I said anyway. And I said, how many of you heard me say what I said? And of course, the rest of the class raised their hand. And I told my audio guy at the time, and I said, play it back. So we played it back. And I said, okay, now how many of you heard me say what she said? I said, and only a couple of people raised their hand once they heard it. Yeah. This was a great lesson in listening and hearing. I got to tell you, I had a blast. And I said, now how many of you, because I did expect that someone would say, I have no idea what you said now, right? I said, now how many of you heard me say what I said, and the rest of the class raised their hand. And I looked at her and she said, they're all wrong. And I said, I'm going to play it again. Now I got to tell you, okay, I must have played this thing back 5 or 6 times. I turned up the volume on the I put headphones on her, okay, and said, let me play this for you one more. She was a great lady, by the way. She wasn't even arguing. She was like, John, I'm sorry. And she was pretty congruent about it. So I put headphones on her. I said, okay, I'm going to put headphones on you. And she said, I'm really sorry. That's what I hear you say. And so that was a good lesson for me. If someone says to me, well, that's not what you said. And I say, well, I have pretty good memory for what I've said, at least in the short-term stuff, from in the seminar kind of thing. But, I was blown away by this. Mm-hmm. So now I have to wonder what goes on in the Zoom meetings, kind of thing like this. I like the format. I like that we can do this. And then I think, oh my gosh, what can go wrong? What could be misunderstood? So I don't know. I really don't know.
So fascinating. And I'm also thinking about how in order, because I've been doing a series of these, in order to send them on for editing, I just rewatch them or re-listen to the audio of them. And I'm discovering just that. What I experienced is different to what I'm seeing in the playback, which is phenomenal, because there's like, whoa, thank you COVID-19, because now I have an opportunity to smarten myself up so that I don't get such that, you know, a big gap in feedback. And interestingly, you know, it works both ways, because sometimes I watch it and in the moment I felt, oh my God, but actually I'm like, super cool. And equally the reverse happens as well.
Sure. I do the same thing, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You know, so I go back and, you know, for years and years, Kathleen and I used to record our seminars when we were doing the trainings in New Jersey, and we would listen to our tapes. Yeah. And I don't mean tapes, because that's what we had way back then, cassette tapes. But even something like this, you know, there's often times, you know, if I catch it fast enough, I can correct it. Yeah. But I find this is more relaxed. Yeah. You know, it's a more relaxed environment. As soon as that happens, you know, anything else can happen, really. So yeah, I go back and I listen too, you know, to some of the things. Sometimes I can't believe I said that. You know, I said to someone, well, the other day I had to change it real fast, but I think they played it out anyway. They recorded it. Someone asked me the other day on a Zoom call. They said, actually, it was a Zoom call. And they were taking questions from some of the audience, and then, you know, give me some. And one guy, and this was about persuasion. Right? So the guy says, so what can I do? What specifically can I do tomorrow, actively tomorrow? What can I do to make a difference in my, I'm thinking of, what do you want? You want a whole language lesson session, stuff like that. So I encapsulated it into one sentence, okay? Because he said, well, you know, during the virus thing, I'm home, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And my one sentence was, well, first thing if you want to do it tomorrow, although you could do it actually, you know, after this call, is get off your ass and do something. And then I said, and I had to repeat it though, but I said, so what you really need to do is get off your butt, you know, because I wasn't sure how that would be taken. Not that I didn't really care actually, but then I thought, well, there's a portion of the audience that might go, oh, this guy, you know, he's so rude. They're going to use this kind of language by this. But I meant it when I said it, you know, because I knew it would have a different impact. So but I caught myself, you know, I said, oh boy, in my own mind, I don't know if it was edited up. I don't know if they cut that part out and just left the other good part in, all those things. So, but I'm me, you know, you guys, you know me, I'm me.
Well, you are, and we love you, and you know, you are one of those, you know, like Richard, just there's always something new to learn. I learn something new every single time with you, and I'm not just sucking up to you because you're on the interview. You know that is my truth, and I am fascinated I would really like to be able to do just a portion of what you can do. When I watch the way that you calibrate the world around you, and I can't really find it, and I'm going to try and grab some of it from you, if I may. There's something about you are running an inside world and yet calibrating entirely in the outside world, but the free flow between the two, it appears seamless, and humor is that energy that kind of seems to keep everything moving. And yet I know that you're calibrating so specifically, and I get caught up with, you know, stuff and get distracted, as I guess many of us do. So what if we were 5-year-olds, which is one of my favorite things that, you know, John Laval taught me, or I heard him say, should I say, a long time ago, you know, tell it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. How is that for you? So that
it works, believe it or not, it works out really well for me. I mean, I think about this and I go, if I have to teach somebody something, then I know there are a lot of people out there that are very intelligent. I mean, you're very intelligent. You know, you got a great set of skills. You know, you do a lot of great things, you know. And yet I think if I have to explain it to anyone, I have to think like I want to teach it to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, I did a lot of work when I first was doing NLP. You know, I was working in a corporation, okay, and so I had the opportunity to work. Well, I had my own human interaction lab. Let me put it that way. But probably about 400 people in the same building, and some of those people who were my favorites, by the way, were the people at the bottom, low rung in the organization who get the work done. Okay. I mean, I was working with the Teamster people, you know, and I loved working with them because they're salt of the earth, you know. And, you know, I find that you go up in some management in some companies and I don't know, you know, they get a little bit I don't know, I guess too full of themselves. But when I was working with the regular people, I spoke regular language. And if I had to, and I was a trainer. So I had to train them on something. I was very, very specific. We did I'll give you an example, real short one. We did a program. Company wanted us to actually rebuild, ready for this? They wanted us to rebuild their training manuals for running their machines. We had no idea how to run their machines, okay? Because we don't work there. Between Kathleen and I, by the way, we know a lot about manufacturing operations and quality control and research and development and everything like that. So we went in and did this project, but we were going to use the employees to give the information, okay? So we started out by saying we had to teach them basic, simple, we weren't teaching them to do strategy elicitation necessarily with other people, but I was trying to get across to them how important the specificity of the language was going to have to be in the manuals. Okay, and I told them, if you guys are going to just put this together, you could talk it into a mic, into a recorder. Don't worry about it spelling, and you don't have to do that. We're going to have somebody else take care of that, right? You get to take all the photos. So we started out by asking them, okay, tell me what you do in the morning when you brush your teeth. This is what I would do with a 5-year-old.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I do this in my mind, I'm thinking, if I said to a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old rather, show me how you brush your teeth, I have this crazy innate ability for some reason to discover everything they could do wrong. Okay, in my mind, and then I start calibrating against that. Okay, and then I correct it, right? Since I can figure out what they're going to do before they even get to do it. If I'm going to give them instructions, I already know what to change in the instructions. Okay. So I said to them, so you tell me, what do you do when you brush your teeth? So I put toothpaste on the brush, I brush my teeth like that. I went, hold on a second. Where'd you get the toothbrush from? And they say, well, it's in the medicine cabinet or it's in the glass. I go, so how do you, when you say you take it or you get it, what do you get? How do you get the toothbrush? And they go, well, it's in my hand. I go, no. How do you get it into your hand? And they say, oh, I pick it up out of the glass. I said, with which hand? And they say, oh. Then we get to the toothpaste, but this goes on, by the way, because I want them to understand if they're going to teach somebody else how to run a machine by the person reading this in a manual, I want it to be as accurate as possible. So then we get to the toothpaste thing, because I'm thinking a 5-year-old is going to pick up the toothpaste is going to go and squirt half of it all over the sink. A little bit's going to end up on the brush. So I said, so then what? They go, I put toothpaste on the brush. I said, with which hand? And I go, oh, well, with the other hand. I go, and that's which hand? They go, oh, the right hand. I go, and how do you put the toothpaste on? They go, well, I squeeze it. I go, how hard do you squeeze it? How do you know when to start squeezing? How do you know when to stop squeezing? So you got just the amount on the brush without squirting it all over the place. Now, this happened for this group of people who were adults, by the way. They were like blown away. And they said, well, I never thought about that. I go, listen, I'm not saying I don't squeeze a glob out of my toothpaste tube either, but I'm not exactly teaching you to brush your teeth right now. I mean, it's that simple, okay? We're talking about you're going to put together how to run these machines, and we didn't get to the safety part yet. So that's part of
Yeah, I'm
I
getting
don't
that.
even know how,
Yeah, that's.
yeah.
I've just got a whole new chunk in that. That was absolutely perfect. Thank you. So, so there's something about. I'm just trying it on, John. So there's something about you're imagining what could go wrong, so that you know what's the next question. To
Pretty
yeah.
pretty much. I mean, it's my way of learning how to, or being able to chunk down for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, in an NLP class, for example, right? I don't know how many people are going to watch this that are NLP people, maybe a bunch, who knows? Maybe they know nothing about NLP, you know? Yeah, it's okay. So, and I would say, so I, you know, they in the class, and then they might come back and say, I say, any questions? You go, yeah, well, you know, didn't quite work out the way I thought it would. And I say, yeah, I know we're practicing, but you know, what happened? And they say, well, he blah, blah, blah. And they tell me this. I go, what was their introductory eye accessing cues? And what was the first representational system they used? First time, the first thing that came out of their mouth. And they look at me, what? I say, listen, if you're not tracking everything you can track, I'm not saying you track everything, but if you're not tracking everything you can track, then you probably miss something at the word go, you know?
Mm.
So,
and that,
I gotta,
sorry, go on.
yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you
I
just.
can go on forever. I can go on forever. I was on the other day and the guy had to tell me to stop because he was translating, and I went on for like 5 or 10 minutes. So,
Translate.
go ahead. No. Yeah.
So I'm something that is kind of on my radar at the moment. Coincidentally, of course, there's no such thing as coincidence. The Milton Erickson, who obviously has influenced a large part of NLP back in the early days with Richard and John. He talked about preparing himself so that the work was done ahead of time. And in my understanding of that is it was all about state. It was all about putting himself in the best possible state, a word that we use a lot in NLP, in order to be able to work with whatever came up. And there's something else in that I see you doing. I know you are in a particular state where you are clearly running those strategies, but it's seamless. So if I was to be childlike, I'd say, well, I can concentrate, or I can talk. But to concentrate and talk, and I know we do a lot of these altered states and uptime capabilities and NLP training, but just to upgrade a little bit more, do you have any more tips?
Oh, sure.
Can you tell me them all, please?
Sure. How much time do we have? Let me see. And there's a couple of things. Let me first of all, you mentioned sense of humor. When I'm training with people and stuff, I do like to make jokes and stuff like that. I do what I can, and that's just to keep all that right chemistry going, you know, the brain, neurochemistry stuff as best I can anyway. And so what I do is when I'm going to get into a certain state, it's a very playful state, but it can also be dangerous. Dangerous isn't the right word, because it has to do with playing chess. You've probably heard me say a couple of times anyway, when I was younger, I played 3D chess. Now, not the way other people played it, okay? The other people, what happened was that they came out with I believe it was a Star Trek set. They had 3 boards, 3 sets of pieces, and then you played 3 games. Well, we didn't do that. We played 3 boards, 3 sets of pieces, 1 game. So you had 3 queens, 3 kings, 6 rooks, 6 bishops, all this stuff, right? And they could play, but you had to make the rules up in advance. That was the creative part. So you and the other person had to negotiate, what are the rules for this? So you could say, for example, you can move a bishop diagonally down from the top all the way to the bottom if you want, but there couldn't be any more than X number of bishops on that board. So you had to create the rules in advance because you were not playing the game the way everybody else was playing. Okay. that, in addition to just playing chess back then, because I was okay at chess. I mean, I was pretty good at it. I wasn't great, but I was pretty good. That playing it this way opened up a whole different way for me to predict the other person and what they were going to do. Okay, as best I could. I'm not saying I could be able to do it all the time. On a one board game, I would say I could probably predict it. I'm going to say maybe 40% of the time, maybe, I don't know. But with 3D chess, I was able to predict it higher than that, a little bit higher than that, predicted, which I was surprised about. And I think that's because I was able to calculate faster than the other person. And I'm not even sure about that. I really don't know. So playing that game, that put me into it. And when I would do it, don't ask me why I would do this even then. I went into warrior mode in my mind. But it was going to be warrior was going to be like cat and mouse. I'm going to play with you. I'm going to play with you. I'm going to catch you. You know? And so that was the state. It was a playful warrior kind of state. I don't know. I think that's also the state I might use a lot of times when I'm in here doing trainings. And that also enables me then, because the last place I want to be, I'm watching the other person, what they're doing. I wasn't so much calculating by looking at the board and going, oh, they might do that. No. I was watching the other person. I was watching what they were doing. Okay, because they would it's like a poker player sometimes, the bad ones. A lousy chess player, you know, would sit there and look at the board and go, and they start making the moves, but they would show them to you.
Yeah. So
that was my calibrating. See? Yeah. Yeah. So that's that part. That's that part of the strategy. Good luck if you want to. You can still buy these 3D boards, by the way.
I struggle with 1D chess. I'm fascinated though, because I play chess, for example, with my husband, who has an engineer's mind and very, very, very good at logical, linear thinking, prediction, and remembering rules. So he can remember all of the combinations of what is possible on the board. Yeah. Versus me, who's like, oh, I wonder what will happen if I do this. Sure. You know, it's kind of maverick, and I don't care about tracking it, and which of course isn't exactly true, but that's the sort of left-right hemisphere difference. And I sometimes think, because what you were saying about the chessboard, if people are used to a set of rules in a one-dimensional chessboard, then the moment you go into 3D, it takes them away from what is known for them, doesn't it?
That's exactly right. And the crazy thing was, so I had one phrase to play with a lot, you know, play chess with, and even if it wasn't 3D chess, because 3D chess often took months and months. You know, you didn't play it on a Saturday night and you were done. No. And we all had to get Polaroid cameras, by the way, so that if we said we're done for the night, you took a picture of all the boards, because you didn't really trust the other person to not start moving things around. But it was crazy, because I started playing even with prediction. I thought, and this was more about testing the other person. So, because I wanted to know if they're trying to predict what I was going to do. So for a number of times, I beat one guy one time, was at least 45 games in a row, okay? Not because I was that great, it's just that he wasn't all that good, because he'd watch my opening moves. And I had some, I forget even what they were, but a couple of opening moves, and I chose one, and I used it, I'm gonna say 10, 15 times in a row, which should have given him a clue of what to do. But it didn't. So I'd make the opening move, and I could see in his mind, I didn't even know NLP back then, but I could see him going in his mind going, I can't believe this guy is going to try this again. So I'm going to do something totally different. And he didn't have to do anything totally different. See, but he did it anyway. So that tells me, it told me back then anyway, could I predict how the other person is going to calculate how to predict me? That sounds kind of strange, but I don't know. Yeah, I've been told I got a weird mind, so.
Me too.
Yeah, I know you do.
Not that you've got a weird mind, but I've got a weird mind.
No, I'd say I know you do. So that's the state part.
Yeah.
You know, I remember back years with Richard, years and years, when he was just coming back from his worst thing that's ever happened to him. And we were starting by doing persuasion engineering. That was his first seminar, coming back, and he's in Orlando. And he looked at me, he always says this to me, he goes, usually he says, what's this seminar? I say, it's persuasion engineering. Usually he goes, oh, I hate this. That's what he usually says, although he loves it. He does it, you know. So I said to him, he said, he didn't ask me what seminar it was. And he was ready to start. He's on stage, okay? He was very congruent when he did this. I said to him, I said, you didn't ask me what seminar this is. And he said, oh yeah, what seminar is this? And I said, it's persuasion engineering. And he said, oh, okay. He said, I got to tell you, John, I hope, I really do, I hope I remember what it's all about. And I said, Richard, I know you. When we open those doors, and those people come in that room, and you light up, you're just going to take off, and you're going to do probably one of the best ones you've done. I'm not worried about it. If I was worried about it, you wouldn't be here on stage right now. You and I'd be looking through the book and refreshing some things. And sure enough, the people came in, they were all excited, blah, blah, blah. So he got right into his state and he went right on, you know, and so, you know, our learning is state dependent, you know that, you know? So that's the other thing, you know, the other thing that's challenging about doing the Zoom meetings, let's say with people, can't even imagine business meetings. I know they have to do certain things, but because, you know, I don't know how many times I've said to someone, they say, what am I going to do with my young one? You know, the blah, blah, blah. They don't like to go to school, yak, yak, yak. They cut class. They don't, My first answer to them is change the environment. You know, I don't know, do something different. Bring them someplace else. You know, just even for a week, I don't know, and watch how they learn how to do something that's totally different. Key being change the environment. You know, because that's so easy for it to change the state. They go, where should I take them? I go, where would they like to go? You know, if they always wanted to go to Bali, it's going to sound crazy. Take them to Bali. But tell them they have to learn 3 things while they're there. So this is the same thing. In this environment here, you and I are not in our regular, let's go get them, got a class to teach environment. Same thing with businesses. Half of them are sitting there in their jammies, you know, or whatever. So they're not even, it's going to be difficult for them to get into that state. And you and I both know it's one of the most important things you can do. It's showtime. Yeah. You don't have to call it that, but that's what it is. You got to get into state, period. Yeah. And then everything else is in there already. You don't have to go relearning stuff. It's already in there. Yeah. So, yeah.
You know, I know that you teach that and I teach that and we know that and we believe it congruently. But even over the years of my NLP journey, it took me a while to really trust that in myself, not in the technology of NLP, but to trust it in myself. And so even, you know, these Zoom interviews now, I'll have 5 minutes the day before framing the sort of general thing, and then I leave it because, you know, it is like, here we are, I'm in my state, and trust that the right things will follow. And I'm just doing what many of my colleagues are currently doing, which is running some online NLP trainings so that we've got people hot to move forward to sure. practitioner certification sure. After the grand pause. And you know, again, I'm loving this because I'm only doing them in 2-hour bites, so it's so easy. Sure. I'm just loving that whole thing that you've mentioned there, which is, you know, all I need to focus on is being in the right state, and then, you know, it is all there. There's something I in my own personal journey about learning to trust that.
Sure.
Can I want to go back to something you were talking about before, which is the 3D chess. And the 3D model, because I process my world in 3D. Maybe other people do. I'm not sure. But certainly the strategies I seem to have elicited so far don't kind of necessarily match that. And so if you were to share the 3D experience of interacting with, I don't know, a small group of people, what's that like? Because I've got my pictures, and
I don't know. I typically don't. I typically don't share it. That I'm doing that. And that, again, that's the state that I use.
Yes, thanks.
So it's not like I'm playing chess. It's not like I'm actually in my mind playing chess and they're all the little pieces. That's not what I'm doing.
No, I'm talking about just to be clear, that's not, I didn't mean that we're talking about a game or a sort of strategic playing, but there's something more about, I think a lot of people operate through life in sort of digital on-off one, but actually when you expand it, there's more, if that makes sense, or is it just my crazy brain?
No, it makes sense. It depends on what they're doing. I wouldn't know everything they're doing unless they're describing it to me, even non-verbally, showing with their hands, doing this and everything else. I find that for the people who think in 3D anyway, that it's more enriching for them, as opposed to, and listen, I've run into a lot of people who make, flat screen images of a lot of things. Never mind movies or slides. I mean, it's a flat screen. There is no 3D to it. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not like I describe it to people. There's a few other things I do besides being in that one particular state. There's probably at least one other thing that I do that most people, I haven't even explained it to a lot of people. So I guess a lot of people will hear about it this time if you want to know. And I'm pretty sure you do. You said, can you teach me everything you do? I don't know that I can teach you everything I do. I'm a city mouse. I grew up in the city. I didn't grow up in the country. My son, for example, he's a country mouse. Okay. So being a city mouse, I did a small clip about this actually, that I could take a city mouse and turn him into a really kick-ass NLP trainer. Okay. Because they've got the very best of situational awareness. And that means they can use that in the classroom. And they can calibrate everything that's going on. They've also got heightened senses of intuition. I mean, just because they were raised that way, were born that way, and we're in that kind of an environment. So, yeah. But if I took some, it's more difficult for me to take someone who's been a country mouse, let's say. I'd have to give them some kind of city mouse experiences, not by having them do an exercise in the NLP class. I can tell you that, right? Or even someone who spent most of their, it's like a politician. Listen, if they're a lifetime politician person, that's all they've ever done, they've never had a job. They shouldn't be talking about business, and they shouldn't be talking about how to fix economies and all this stuff. Okay, they should be talking about the best thing they know about, which is giving things away. That's my own personal, political opinion. Whereas when I've seen other people, and they're in the Congress, we have business people in the Congress who have run businesses, and they know more about what should be done. So it'd be more difficult if I took a great guy or a great gal, doesn't matter, if they're a country mouse, and they went through college, university, the whole thing. I'd have more of a problem turning them into a kick-ass NLP trainer than I would if I took a guy off the street, got him to quit the gang he's in, spruced him up a little bit, got him a little bit of an education. They'd probably be better at it because they have some of the basic skills that are really necessary in order to just calibrate, pay attention to what's going on, that kind of thing. Nowadays, it's known as situational awareness. I mean, that's what it's called.
Yeah, and that makes huge sense to me. My own experience, I am a country mouse. I always lived in the country, but we moved a lot. So I was always new girl, and this is in the 60s and before anybody else moved around. So I was always new girl in class. And you learn really quickly to
Yeah, that's right.
calibrate.
You sure do.
You know. So it's what you're saying. It's not just about the environment, city or country. It's actually your experience. So
Right.
parachuting in quick. And I didn't do this for years, but actually that was what my ability. And for a while, it kind of went off track because hypervigilance can become overwhelming.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is. Hypervigilance. That's exactly right.
And certainly, it overwhelmed me for a while until I learned how to use it usefully, which is, of course, what we do with the Vandler technologies. Yeah.
So here I got a country mouse, my son.
Yeah.
He's about 14 at the time, and he wants to play in this band, this rock and roll, or not even rock. I didn't even know what the hell they played. And I know these guys, and I thought, these guys are probably messing around with light drugs anyway, kind of stuff. So I told Kathleen, who's a city mouse, by the way, and I said to her, I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to take John Sebastian to New York. She said, oh, that's nice. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to take him out to Washington Square. And she said, oh, what for? I said, I'm going to let him watch drug deals going down. Because if you wanted drugs, that's where you went. You went to Washington Square. Okay? It's a big park in New York. It's got the Arc de Triomphe thing in there, and stuff like that, whatever. And so she said, are you crazy? I said, yeah. But I know this is going to work because he needs to have an experience to learn something. See, we like to teach people with NLP. We like to teach them how to do it up in here. You give somebody an experience for something, they will remember it. I mean, it's got to be a good one, And the reason I didn't make this up, the strategy, by the way, okay? I found this strategy out because this is what my dad did to me about drinking and driving, okay? Drinking and driving.
Okay.
So I take John Sebastian out to Washington Square, and there's all kinds of beautiful day, there's all kinds of things going on, drug deals and whatever. And I said, you sit over there, maybe 15, 20 feet away. You sit over there. Nobody's going to bother you because you're a kid. Really. I mean, don't worry about it. I can see you from here. It's not a big deal. And I said, you just watch how many people come up to me and talk to me, even just for a few seconds, okay? And I'm going to act like I'm already doing some kind of drugs or something, and I don't really need any more. I explained everything. I said, because I'm not buying drugs, John. I don't do this. So he said, okay. And he watched. And guys would come up to me and go, hey, man, something? I was like, oh, man, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good right now. Maybe come back tomorrow. I see you tomorrow, all this stuff. So I had enough of that. And I went over to talk to John. I said, what do you think? He goes, and he said exactly what I thought he would say as any teenager. He said, so you can come out here anytime you want and buy drugs. I said, yeah, of course. I said, yeah. I said, sure. Whatever kind you want, pretty much. I said, but did you look around at all? He's a great calibrator, by the way, now. I said, you look around at all? He said, well, you had a lot of guys. I said, yeah, but you didn't look up in the windows around in the buildings. He looked up there. I said, what do you see? He said, there's people with cameras. I said, those are called police officers, okay? And probably DEA agents. What do you think they're doing up there? Having like a cocktail party or something? He said, no, they're probably taking pictures of everything that's going on down here. I said, exactly. He said, so now you and I are going to watch a drug deal going down, and I'm looking across the park a little bit. It's not a big wide park. It's just, not that big actually. And I said, okay, there's a guy right there. You see the guy over there? So he's got something in his hand. The other guy's talking to him. Now they're swapping hands. There goes the money. You could just about see the money. And there goes the drug. There goes a little packet of, it's not white. It's a little bit off-white. It's actually kind of a little bit tan kind of color. I'm going to say it's cocaine. I mean, heroin. It's probably heroin. I said cocaine would probably be pure white, but that's heroin. He said, oh, I said, now see that deal go down? He said, yeah. He said, now we're going to follow one of them, you and me. We're going to follow one of them. Which one should we follow? He said, so we should follow the drug dealer. I said, why? The cops are going to get the drug dealer. I said, we should follow the guy who just bought the drugs. And he said, why? I said, so we can find out what he's going to do with it. And we followed the guy, kept enough distance away. Guy went into an alleyway. I stopped. I talked to my son. I said, listen, He's going in there, he's doing this, he's doing that. I'm going to give him about maybe a few, maybe a minute or 2 minutes, and you and I are going to go, we're going to go say hi to him. And sure enough, we went. There's a guy in the alley, laying in the alley, got the needle hanging out of his arm thing with the thing tied to, the tube around his arm thing like this. He got the needle hanging out, looking like this. And I looked at my son, I said, what do you think? He said, it doesn't look like a lot of fun. I said, it's not a lot of fun. So think about this before you decide what you're going to do, okay? Now, to this day, I have to tell you, to this day, and my son, he's very honest with us. We have a great family. We get along great. To this day, he's not done drugs, okay? He likes to have his drink, have a cocktail at night when we're down there or something like that. Never done any drugs. I even tried teasing him one time. I said, hey, son, listen, you're about that age now with the dad. You saw the movie where the vacation movie thing where the kid had the beer with his dad. I said, what do you think? Should we do a doobie or something? He said, nah. I said, come on. It's your old man here. Come on. It's your father. Mom's not going to know about it. You and I will just go someplace. We'll find some and we'll roll a good one up there. We'll share one. That's not that really. I'm not into it. I'm really not. You want to have a drink? He said, well, we'll go out and have a drink. Okay. So that's what I used to give my country mouse a city mouse experience. It was more than that. There was another one besides that. And Kathleen was with us at the same time to took him into the city. That way they don't have to fantasize about, oh, it's grand, it's great out there. Oh, it's fantastic out there. Well, there's a lot of fantastic things out there, but there's a lot of not good things, and you ought to know what they are, plain and simple. See? Yeah. So that was my dad did it with me, by the way, with drinking and driving. He took me to a crash that was an old, probably a 1960, early 60s Oldsmobile, which was like a tank, and it probably ended up being this big, because it hit a bridge abutment, and it was all kinds of, I won't get into the details, in the car, bluff stuff, yak, and he looked at it, and I'm going, God, that's disgusting. My gosh. He goes, well, that's what happens when you drink and drive, so you better think about it. Okay? I have never drank and drove. I should say, if I had a drink, I didn't drive for at least 5 or 6 hours. Otherwise, never did it. Never. And I played in rock and roll bands, okay? In bars and clubs, nightclubs. Didn't do it. Because I kept seeing the pictures of that old Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
But that's cool. That's something about people to realize. You change the environment, even if it's for a short period of time, to teach something like that. That's a 3D life experience, something that's live. Not, oh, let me tell you what happened to me. No, here's what happened to me. Come on, I'm going to have it happen to you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, a fair proportion of my work involves children and families, and something I see an awful lot of is parents not allowing their kids to fall down and pick themselves back up again. They try and save them on the way down, or pick them back up and then go and shout to somebody and blame them. And there's something about that, feeling the experience neurologically, and
it's all senses. It's all senses. I mean, that's really what happens. They see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. By the way, there were smells out in Washington Square. I don't know about taste because we didn't taste anything, but it was the whole experience thing. And when we looked in that alley, I got to tell you, that didn't even smell very good at all. I mean, that whole scenario. But that's the 5 senses, or at least 4 out of the 5.
Yeah.
And he couldn't wait to get out of there. He said, come on, Dad, let's go do something else. Let's go somewhere. At which point, I did. I said, you want a pretzel or something? Want to have lunch? Want to get a burger or something, pizza, blah, blah, blah. And then took him out of that.
Yeah. So, so going back to the process of our businesses, not just talking our businesses, but in general, the business world that now is operating largely online, where we're going to have to be super precise with our communication. And as you say, we're only able to calibrate a little bit with 2 senses only, visual and auditory, and even they are distorted, aren't they, for all the reasons that you've mentioned. So with anybody in business who is going to be operating more this way moving forward, and I suspect that there's going to be a big revolution in the way that we operate moving after this current situation, where obviously NLP is a fabulous skill set to enable more precise communication, as is your book and your DVD set of persuasion engineering. But I'm thinking about what you could, if you were to offer 3 tips for little short strategies to enable people to start at least thinking about how they can smarten themselves up, what would that be?
Let's see. I mean, I don't know about 3 or let me think about it.
Or one.
One of them would be
One.
one of them would, I give you everything I have, but it would take us weeks. And I can learn lots from a lot of people. I can learn lots from you. I still learn lots from Richard, just by listening and watching. Years ago, because I wasn't that. I knew about language. I was very fond of it. And we were in San Francisco, and he said to he was taking a break, and he said to one of his people, his staff, his PA basically, he said, "Do me a favor." He said, "Get me a Diet Coke and a glass of ice." That's pretty simple, right? So about an hour or two later, in comes rolling in a big cart of desserts and drinks, all kinds of sodas and juices and all this stuff. And Richard, you know how he can be sometimes, most times actually, almost all the time actually, looking at this thing rolling in, and he calls this assistant over at PA. He says, "What's that?" She goes, "Well, you said you wanted desserts and refreshments for everybody." He said, "No, I wanted a Diet Coke and a glass of ice. Get that thing out of here." And I'm telling you, and she's like, it took her a long time, because I don't even think she realized or remembered exactly what he had told her to do. And I sat there observing and listening to all this and thought, precise language, just precise language. No beating around the bush, not too. No, he doesn't do too much of that himself. There's a great time to beat around the bush. I got friends, you just kind of chat and stuff like that. But even then, I'm catching things that they're saying, things I'm saying. I'm going, I could have said that differently. No big deal. We're friends. It's not I'm not here to help change the world with them. They're all happy. I know my friend I've known since we're 5. So whatever could happen has happened, So that whole thing about one is really paying attention to 2 things. One is to what you say and how you say it, but that's not as important as what's the response you get back from that. If you're not getting the response back that you want back, then you've got to make some kind of an adjustment of some sort if you still want the response. One thing I notice anyway, I've noticed it for years, is if someone answers my simple question. Okay, like if I say to them, "What time did you start this morning?" They say, "Well, what happened is I had to go." Listen, what time did you start this morning? That's all I need. I don't need to know what happened this morning. You went to get coffee. I don't need the story. I don't care about the story. I just don't care. I don't. I want to know what time you started, because that's the only thing I'm worried about right now. I'm thinking, keeping track of, so I know how much time is left for the day. Blah 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 blah. Kind of thing. It's that tells me that they either are thinking that there's another answer I want than the answer to that simple question. I like to watch Judge Judy. Judge. I don't know if you guys have Judge Judy over there. I like Judge Judy, except for a couple. One thing she does, I don't care for. It's the eye thing. When the person's asking she's asking a question, they look up. She goes, "Don't look up there. You look at me when you're answering the question." I want to send her eye accessing chart.
Yeah.
Say, "Judge Judy, you're great. I love you. I really do. You're fantastic. One of the best. You hang right in there. You're very intuitive. You're smart. Blah blah blah. This eye thing. You got to stop this eye thing, because actually they're trying to remember something and blah 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 blah." I'd like to explain it to her one time, but she's about to retire. So, but what I like about her is she notices and answering the question. She's not answering the question. So, and what they'll do is that when they don't answer the question, she says to them, "Don't try to predict where I'm going with this." Okay? Because you could be wrong. But that's what happens when people don't answer the question. It's very simple questions. People, they're wondering, oh, he's up to something, or why would he, why would he answer that? Why would he answer that? Why would he ask me that question? I don't know. I really don't know. So in addition to me thinking about how I'm going to ask something, next thing is step after that is what's the response I get back? And is it even in the ballpark of the answer or the response I'm looking for? I don't think people do that enough. And by the way, most people, they don't ask, I think people don't ask good questions most of the time in business. What happened is a big question, right? Somebody say, well, what happened? What happened yesterday? Where do you want me to start with what happened yesterday? So I think in business, we could really, really shore things up and teach people to be a little bit more precise, things come to mind. I tell people also that here's what I do. If I ask someone a question and they go off on another tangent, I stop them. First of all, I stop. I say, well, let's go back a little bit. Because everything that I do when I'm working with people, okay, like I'm training or whatever, or I'm in an interaction in a business setting and interaction, is everything for me goes moment to moment. So I don't need to listen to somebody's 15 minutes of blah, 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 right? If I'm asking them for something. So basically, to me, it goes like this. So you say something, I respond. You respond to that, I respond to that. You respond to that, I respond to that. And if there's a diversion someplace, we handle the diversion somehow. Like, you brought me back once earlier today. You said, back to that chess thing, that 3D chess game thing, okay? And I understand that. And okay, so I went off a little bit. You want to know more about that chess strategy thing. But that's to me how it works. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I like to work in short chunks when I'm working with somebody, or if I'm teaching something with somebody. I'm not, to get 18 sentences about that there should have been a yes or no answer is just way too much. So, but that's two. It's two short pieces.
Yeah, thank you for that. There are many things that I've learned from you over the years, John, but one of them very much is that the importance of well-targeted questions, and only so you know what to do or ask next. So it's gathering the information, and then gathering the information, and then I've really appreciated that.
I appreciate that. One of the things I learned from a consultant, it was one of my NLP trainers actually years and years ago. He's passed since then. Taught me, because he was just teaching plain out consulting. Want to learn to be a consultant? I'm going to give you 2 days. Let's go. Come on. Had maybe no more than 15 people. I was one of the lucky ones. And he taught us, explained to us in a very simple manner. He said he had it burned. He had it burned in his forehead and the inside of his forehead. So I thought, all right, I can do that. Is basically he said outcome at the time. So what's your outcome right now? What is it you're trying to accomplish right now inside here? So every time you start the interaction with someone else, working with them, business, whatever it is, what's your objective? Why are you even talking? And so I have that someplace in here. I didn't burn it in there myself, but it's in there. Where I think about that, I go, what's my objective? And if I stay to that objective, I'll probably be able to stay more on track with the other people. So I don't think people do that in business, because what they really want is, maybe they do that, but it's what their agenda is, and not in what everyone else's agenda is, the group. That whole thing. That's probably the most difficult thing to get people to agree to, although it can be done. What's our common goal right now? Yeah. It can be done. I don't know if it can be done on a Zoom kind of thing like this, because sometimes you got to get right up to somebody and look them right like that and go, what's your objective right now? Yeah. So I think those are the things. Those are skills. Those are basic skills we should have here. Yeah. We've been asked this question when we were in school and got in trouble. It was like, what were you trying to do? What were you trying to do? I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard that. Or the other one I heard was, what did you do now? Then how come you did that? And how come you didn't do this? I go, because I didn't know I could do this. That's why I did that. But businesses, we're all grown up now. We're grown-ups, so to speak, pretty much, you know, or at least we're supposed to be sort of grown up. So we should at least have a better repertoire in here, you know, about, you know, asking good questions.
Yeah. And I think that good question of what's the purpose of the question is a good question. And another one that I often slot in is, who's this about? I've managed to mostly put that in place now before I speak. You know, what I'm about to say is, you know, what is the purpose of what I'm about to say, but also, you know, who is this really about? And just being clear on that. And again, I've learned that.
Yeah, and you know when you're doing that.
Yeah, now, mostly.
I know, because yeah, it's probably more than you might think. I don't know, because I watch you sometimes. I watch you in action sometimes, and I say, yeah, she's going to go on a roll now. No, really. So.
Break off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
okay, go ahead. I was going to say, the other thing that, you know, most people are not interested in all the kind of stupid things I'm interested in. Not that they're stupid, but people say, are you kidding me? I say, actually, no, I'm not. I used to like, when I was in mostly college, I guess, my hobby, you might not even know what this thing is. I don't know if you got any legal kind of background or even dallied around in any kind of legal stuff, you know. I used to enjoy reading the, what's called the Uniform Commercial Code, which all the basic laws and statutes that are used by every country in the world. Okay, it does come under our Constitution, but it explains all the little things about the way your country deals with contracts and the way my country deals with contracts are basically the same. Okay, you might have a couple of little things that are different in there, you know. So I kind of enjoyed that, and that's where I got another appreciation for that precise language thing. See, so the other thing is I love the fact that you guys have the Magna Carta, that whole thing, because that forms the basis of legal things. Okay. And our Constitution, not because I like everything that's in there necessarily, but it's pretty straightforward. And the fact that we still have to argue about things that are in it, I understand that, okay? But the things I've appreciated, which pretty much come from the Magna Carta, are rule of law and letter of the law. So in terms of even written words, not just verbal, but verbal is, you don't have it recorded. So therefore, how do you prove you said that and blah, 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 is that it is what it's written. The way it's written is what it means, period. Now, if it's ambiguous language, of course, then it's going to be ambiguous responses, right? You know? So just as an example to people, there was a guy who got a parking ticket. And he went to court, he brought his photographs, okay? And the judge said, how do you plead? He said, I plead not guilty, Your Honor. He said, how's that? He said, well, there's a sign there, Your Honor, and it says no stopping. It said no, he didn't even argue about the stopping thing. He said it said no stopping. And I have pictures, right? And by the way, Judge, Your Honor, stopping means to dig holes. It's stopping is when you dig holes of stuff. And I took pictures. There's no holes. There's not even a shovel, nothing. And here's the picture of the sign. It says no stopping. And the police officer said, Your Honor, come on. I'm looking at the sign. It says no stopping, officer. Okay, so sorry, I'm ripping up the ticket. I mean, those are just these little things that I say. So, and that's called letter of the law. If the law is not accurate in how they want it to work or to implement it, guess what? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing if we're in business. Mm-hmm. Okay. How people give instructions. Oh my gosh. In business. Oh my gosh. I don't know what to say. They really got to get onto the precise language kind of thing. Yeah. Most of them don't even know about it getting into a good state. Okay, most of them they just don't.
I've listened over the years to certainly stuff that my husband's come back with from various big companies that he's worked in. non-specific, but he'll say that so and so, some global CEO has said, how many times do I have to tell you? And it's like, okay, so it didn't land the first time, or the second, or the third time, or the fourth time. Okay, so who's responsible for that? And it's these simple things that if you don't know, you don't know. So I guess something I've just realised we've been talking for over an hour. It's so easy, and thank you for this. I wanted to sort of conclude by encouraging people to think about who they're hanging out with, because one of the great things for me about hanging out with you guys in our international conferences, when we're all together supporting Richard's various seminars and yours and Kathleen's, is the exponential growth in our development when we're all sparking at that level of there's a fast track, isn't there? Like I know a couple of times you've asked me a question and I've answered you and I've walked away thinking, shit, I know what I just did there and I didn't mean to do that. But that you get those opportunities to quickly learn more about yourself. So who you're hanging out with, who you're interacting with, can be really powerful, can't it?
Yeah. Well, you're not alone, by the way. I do the same thing when it's with Richard. I walk away, go, what did I find?
You're just trying to make me feel better. Thank you.
He doesn't care who it is. He doesn't discriminate.
Oh, but I just absolutely love it, and it's all that continuous growth, and it's what I believe to be in common with the engineering world, which is the continuous improvement model. I have always believed that we can who knows what's possible for us, and that's really exciting. There's a lot
we can still do. I'm convinced.
Yeah.
In companies, I'm surprised how many companies, it's one thing if they're continuing operating. It's something else if they're growing.
Yes.
Are they growing their business?
Yeah.
No, I mean.
Yeah, and right now, this has to be a time for new ideas, new opportunities, thinking out of the box and doing things very differently. Yeah, it's got to be a time for harvesting what's useful from the past and moving it forward.
Cool. Yeah, my favorite thing now, feel free to use it, is the landscape has changed.
Has changed indeed.
I can see my internet was blurred. My internet was blipping for a moment. Am I back?
I did. I got you.
I said, yeah.
The landscape.
Yeah, no, I saw I had a little signal and my internet was blipping. I'm in a neighborhood where everybody's home, of course, so they're probably all on the line. Who knows what's going on? That's my favorite one. Has been for about 6 or maybe even a year now. Is the landscape has changed, and so watch where you're going. Watch where you're walking. Things have changed out there, and that is changing even more so now. Companies are not now going to be able to go back and do things the old way and all this other stuff. Things change. So when I say the landscape it changes, because there's been because when there's been a major shift, basically to the whole planet. This is definitely going to this whole time. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's seismic. I mean, it's not good for those people who've suffered seriously through it.
No, of course not. No, good thing. It's a good thing for change.
Yeah.
I didn't used to go shopping for my mother-in-law. Now I go shopping for my mother-in-law. The first time, Kathleen said to me, she goes, "Oh, my mom, she gets some things she can't get." When you go shopping, you think, my first initial response was, "Oh man, I have enough trouble walking around a supermarket getting the stuff we got to get." I didn't say that, but that's the first thing I thought, right? And then once I bought her all the stuff, I didn't bring it to her place yet, right? Once I bought all the stuff, I thought, oh, she's going to feel really good. She's going to have the stuff she wants, yada, 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 okay? And now I say, what does she need this week, right? So it's not like I would have minded doing the shopping, but now I kind of like it. Because I know it's keeping her happy. 86 years old, the woman, and she's a good lady, you know. So let me make sure she doesn't hear this, though. Make sure she doesn't watch this part because.
I won't send it.
So we're headed into a whole bunch of new changes that are coming out of this thing.
Maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, I was involved for a number of years with a big enterprise education program. So we would travel around the country running do you know Dragon's Den?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I think you have something similar in America, but I can't remember the name of it anyway. But it's where we would take groups of college students and give them bring out their creativity. We get them to come up with a business idea, and then they'd pitch it to us, and then we'd pull out their marketing strategies. And it was really about expanding their brains, thinking entrepreneurially. And it was funded by and driven by some research which showed that what employers were going to be looking for in their next generation of employees was nothing to do with their academics. Well, of course, a little bit to do with their academic skills, but it was much more to do with their adaptability, their flexibility, their ability to think creatively and out of the box. And I think absolutely that resonated with me. But beyond that, I just think those kids now who are our 30-something millennials, they are the ones who are going to move this whole thing on, because
that's right.
Skills.
That's right. And for everybody older than them, younger than them, they're still going to learn. But everyone who's a little bit older than them, you talked earlier and mentioned that this was really going to be somewhat including about resilience, right? Well, it's not the person with the most toys when they die that wins. It's not. It's the person who can adapt the best, easily, most, fastest to change. That's always been what is, survival of the fittest, if you want to call it that. You've got to be adaptable. And so you've been teaching those kids back then in college. I'd be interested in knowing what they're doing today.
Yeah, I would.
They could be running serious think tanks for all we know, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll find out. So John, thank you so much for this. It would be easy for me anyway, it would be easy to continue. Before we go, how do people contact you, as if they don't already know? What's your...
it's real simple. Listen, we're on Facebook, first of all. Callie and I brought on Facebook, but our website is purenlp.com. That's the easiest thing to go to, From there, they can find email, they can email us and all this stuff. They can ask for information, blah, blah, blah. Just go to purenlp.com. And of course, we're always linked to Richard's too, richardbandler.com. So, we're working on a few other social things, being traveling around a lot, we're still getting used to some of the other social media that's available to us. And that for us is a little bit time consuming more time consuming than we at least thought in the past. And now I'm not so sure. We probably got to get on board really fast,
Well, I understand that one. And thanks. Also just a shout out to NLP Eternal.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we used to have products online. We used to sell the hard products. People don't buy those anymore. They might buy books, but they don't buy CDs. Those are so outdated now. They don't buy DVDs. So what we did was we put all that stuff online. And at the moment, I don't know if he's continued actually. So I'm a little careful of him. At least for April, we had some products you could just go watch for free and enjoy, because you're home and doing the Corona thing. And but now it's really inexpensive. I got to tell you, it's probably about $4,000 or $5,000 worth of stuff for like I don't know, a couple of $100 for the whole year. And you can stream it on your computer, you can stream it on your phone, your iPads, whatever you have. Those are all of Richard's and Art's products, things like that. So I appreciate that. NLP Eternal. And we might even throw a few other things up there to keep them and make them free. Because there are a lot of things that we just want to get out there about Richard, even though he co-created everything, there's so many other things going on. I don't want to make sure people don't forget Richard. He's still out there. He's alive and well and kicking. You know, I was talking to him the other day. I said, you know, we're going to line up some interviews for you and stuff like that. And he went, well, okay. Don't forget, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the afternoon, you know, I go to the gym.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So look, some great products. Yep.
I was just going to reinforce that message. NLP Eternal is a phenomenal platform. Even when I first heard of it, I was a bit like, well, I've been buying these products for years. I've got all the books, I've got the DVDs, I've got the CD. And then I asked myself, well, do you really ever listen or watch them? Well, no, you don't. Hang on a minute. Whereas having access on the phone or my iPad is just, I'm absolutely loving it. And I'm going to some really old stuff of Richard's that I really enjoy it. And I have to say, just a shout out to John Sebastian's new experimental music. I was playing that in the background the other day, and I was like, I quite like this. This is good.
I have to tell you, my son, you know, that's my son. He when he told me that he was putting together some experimental music, and I said, John, I'm the dad, right? So I said, John, I sent you for drum lessons, you know, right? And then I didn't mind that, but you know, now what is this music thing? Blah, blah, blah. He said, oh no, Dad, I was listening to some of this other stuff that Richard's doing, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I can create some of this stuff to have people get into different states. And I went, okay, all right, well, go ahead, have at it. I don't care. Go ahead, have at it. And yeah, so don't show him this either, okay? But I was really surprised at how great some of that stuff came out. I did tell him. So yeah, you know, he's got a mind of his own. You know, there's no, you know, we hardly ever constricted him to doing certain things that we wanted him to do and all this stuff. And he's a real free spirit, so he's always been. So we did the best we could with him, and he's turned out great. So I'm supposed to be a granddad this year.
So cool.
Oh yeah, if everything works out, I'm going to be spoiling. So I'm looking forward to that. Wonderful thing to come out.
It's a new life, new birth.
I'm not even going to talk about Kathleen being a grandma there kind of thing. Oh my gosh. Oh boy, she's just waiting. She's just sitting back waiting and waiting.
Well, I don't suppose my children will watch this either, so I'm probably safe to say it, but can't wait. One day. I've got 5 of them lined up. Surely one of them will have a child.
Yeah. In their own time.
No, but it's about me, John.
I know. Listen, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for one moment. I just never said anything. Well, once in a while I hinted around.
Did you?
Yeah. Once in a while I'd hint around. I go, no, I'm getting older now. You know, I'd like to enjoy a bunch of years, you know, with the grandkids. Notice I said kids. So.
Yeah. And on that note, John, as one of your kids, because I know that you and Kathleen refer to us fondly, I think, as your kids in the group, in the assistant.
Yeah. Anybody who's on our assisting team, and of course you are, you know, we appreciate. I cannot ever express it enough. Really, I appreciate it so much. But sometimes I just don't know what to say. So, but if we say our kids, yeah, that means a lot. It means a lot to us, really.
Wow. Yeah.
If I look at someone one day and I've never had to do say you're no longer one of our kids, boy, that'd be a very bad thing. No, I wouldn't. No, I'd never have said it. I'm saying if I ever had to do that, I'd probably have to take them to Washington Square first and give them some kind of an experience.
This will happen to you if you don't. No, it's an absolute pleasure. And it's back to that thing about when you are in an exhilarating, inspirational environment surrounded by people who are raising your game constantly, which, by the way, is what I would always recommend a business does when they say, oh, you know, we've got a problem with X person or Y person. I just would say, let's build a beacon in the middle. Never mind the rotten egg. Let's build the beacon, and it raises everybody, doesn't it?
That's great.
Yeah. John, thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time. I know it's a really busy time, but really, really appreciate it. And it's just been an absolute delight, as always. I know I've learned loads. I can't even begin. I'm going to have to re-listen and pick out all those little extra nuggets that I've got for my arsenal, which grows every day thanks to the wonderful work that the Society of NLP does. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
And
you.
thanks again for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Take care.
Okay.